Hello, it's Phil again with Healthcare Business News. And in today's installment of 5 Minutes in Healthcare, I can tell you that we are probably going to go a little bit over because we're joined today by Robert Kerwin, who is the General Counsel for IMERS, the International Association of Medical Equipment Remarketers and Servicers. Rob, thanks for joining us.
Great to be here.
So Rob, before he was working full-time at IMERS, he was worked with a company that was licensed in 50 states, and he was in charge of cybersecurity there. So he's an expert on this area. Rob, can you give me just two quick examples of instances where people have suffered a cyber attack?
So during the past month, a couple of our members were to receive deposits, and the deposits were waylaid. Someone came in the middle and changed the ABA numbers. So the money went to a bank, but it didn't go to the bank they had designated, and which tells me they had a cyber problem for some time that was undetected. And this is pretty common. We've worked with the FBI on several occasions, and they have a great cyber security task force, but they are so inundated at this point that they can't keep up with it. And but they are extraordinary in trying to help when you have a cyber incident, and we're glad to have them.
Let me ask you, Rob, if you had to give a company just one or two or maybe three pieces of advice relating to cybersecurity, what sort of advice would you offer?
I think, Phil, got to have an incident response plan. Not only is it the law, but you really need, when that crisis emerges, and somehow it always seems to emerge on a Friday afternoon, where there are a lot of attacks happening, you need to have your team ready to deal with the situation. And so first, let's get that incident response program going. Second, got to do data mapping to have an effective incident response. Where is your data lying? I think a lot of people are very surprised where their data is lying, what's out facing, and how to deal with the vulnerabilities. You know what, there's an interesting site that I recommend to folks called Coveware. And in it, there are some remote desktop protocols that can be accessed. So if you would like, they're just one of several, to figure out where your vulnerabilities are, that might be helpful to know, because frequently when there's a cyber incident, someone is accessing your system behind the firewalls with remote desktop protocols. And it would be very helpful to know, is it happening to your company right now?
I see. Well, you'll have to share that that URL with us, and we'll put it in the story. Tell me, once you've been hit with a cyber attack of some kind, what advice do you have for people?
Hopefully, there'll be some cyber insurance to deal with the common ransomware situation. So you have some attacks where there will be an attempt to obtain the money, and there'll be others which will completely lock out, like happened to Presbyterian Hospital a couple of years ago. And there'll be a demand being made for ransom. Bitcoin is the manner in which they make that request. They'll make a demand under Bitcoin. The question is, do you pay the ransom or not? And, that's always a tough situation. I know there are several authorities that say don't. And there's no assurance if you do pay the ransom that you're going to get your data back. But we really need to think of these things before the incident happens.
Yeah, is there any data on when people pay the ransom, if they get their system back, or is there no recorded data like that?
So Verizon does an annual study, and they do address some of that, but a lot of it's anecdotal. Sometimes the no-goodniks actually don't know how to give you your data back, and that's a problem. But the anecdotal stuff says that roughly 50% of the time you'll get your data back, you'll be able to proceed, but hopefully you'll have backup systems in place so you don't need to access that option. And as we talked about, the FBI is a helpful resource in all of this, you know, to help us. And of course, you know, you got to have that written information security protocol together as well.
Yeah. So, do you know of instances where people have not given in and are operational again, or does everything start from scratch?
I know one instance of where they had backup sufficient, which was not attacked, and they were able to reconstitute the data. That's been the exception to the rule. Most of the time what I'm hearing are people are paying the ransomware, and you know that gets into a discussion about shouldn't you have some cyber insurance which addresses some of this to help reduce the risk. The cyber insurance is a very big deal nowadays, and the word on the street is some hospitals and HDOs are requiring cyber insurance before they're going to deal with vendors. So I really think that needs to be explored to keep you in good relation with the HDO or the hospital.
What does the insurance company do? Do they pay the ransom, or do they pay you for loss of business?
Well, it depends. You know, I looked at a policy a couple of weeks ago and talked a little bit about it on .med, that was something little more than paying for you to issue notices to the governmental agencies. But you really want the insurance agency to pay or to at least contribute to repaying for any damages you pay out for the ransomware. You really need to look in the details of the policy. And I was surprised there was a 31-page policy that really amounted to only a cap of 50,000, and oftentimes that's not going to cover it for a major attack.
Yeah. Well, I think you told me that 50% of the people will encounter 50% of the companies will encounter cyber attack.
Some sort of malware. Yep.
Yeah. Is this large companies and small companies, all companies, or mostly small companies?
It's large and small. And, you know, I'd like to also forward to you the URL from HHS because they actually have their a division which records some of the recent attacks that have taken place on healthcare institutions. And it's a combination of large and small. Really can't say there's a predominance of one over the other. Frankly, I just feel it's a matter of when, you know.
And do you believe that you're in a position to give advice to companies to prepare for a cyber attack?
I mean, I work with some consultants who do penetration studies, and these are things that you go and check your own vulnerabilities out yourself. Not only do you data map, but now with the penetration studies, you're actually sending emails to your employees and seeing if they bite, or if, you know, some ways to determine your vulnerabilities as a way to determine how vulnerable you are.
Okay, well, this is a very interesting and timely topic. Rob, we're lucky to have your insight here today. So I hope everybody pays attention.
Well, if I can put a plug in, they read the .NET article on cyber insurance we recently published.
Yes, we'll put that, we'll put that story that appeared in Healthcare Business News, which I read, which encouraged me to write to you for this interview. So
thanks, Phil.
Full circle. All right, thank you, Rob.